Saul, the first flesh king in the lukewarm heart. In part 10, we're going to be discussing Saul, the first king of Israel, of the Monarchy of Israel, and this is part 10 of the series, Monarchy of Israel. As we previously mentioned, we touched briefly on Saul, and the reason why I wanted to go kind of deep into Saul is because this is the groundwork of what is the beginning of the split, basically. And that evidently happened, after the death of Solomon and these types of things, and we'll get into that too. But, so anyways, Saul, from the Hebrew word pronounced Shaul, which means asked, or it's equaled desired, was a Benjamite, a son of Kish, the first king of Israel. And also it was an early king of Edom and a successor of Sama. That's not the same Saul, by the way, but it was another individual by the name of Saul that was a king of Edom. But this one was a Benjamite, and he was the first king of Israel. The son of Kish of the tribe of Benjamin. He was the first king of all the tribes of Israel. The kingdom later split into Israel and Judah after the death of Solomon. Saul's reign is a pivotal time in Bible history. It's dated from approximately from around 1010 BC, and Saul was chosen the first king of Israel after the sons and potential successors of the high priest Samuel were rejected by the people as corrupt, according to 1 Samuel 8, 1-9. God permitted the establishment of the monarchy, but in speaking to Samuel, the Lord said of it, reading from 1 Samuel 8, 1-9, and it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abiah. They were judges in Beersheba. And his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre, and took bribes and perverted judgment. Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together, and came to Samuel unto Ramah, and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. But the thing displeased Samuel, when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. Again, because the Lord was their king, and that wasn't good enough for them. They wanted a fleshly ruler. And the Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people in all the day they say unto thee, for they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me. The Lord can be translated as Yahuwah or Yahweh, just to clear matters up there. According to all the works which they have done since the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, even unto this day, wherewith they have forsaken me, and served other gods, so do they also unto thee. Now therefore hearken unto their voice, howbeit yet protest solemnly unto them, and show them the manner of the king that shall reign over them. If you haven't watched part 9, go and watch part 9 of this series, where I went into good detail of this whole chapter. So after being selected by God, according to 1 Samuel 9, 15 and 17, which states, Now the Lord had told Samuel in his ear, a day before Saul came, saying, Tomorrow about this time I will send thee a man out of the land of Benjamin, and thou shalt anoint him to be captain over my people Israel, that he may save my people out of the hand of the Philistines. For I have looked upon my people, because they cry, but their cries come unto me. And when Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said unto him, Behold, the man whom I spake to thee, of this same shall reign over my people. So after being selected by God, Saul was secretly anointed by Samuel, before being publicly chosen by Lot. 1 Samuel 10:1. Then Samuel took a vial of oil, and poured it upon his head, and kissed him, and said, Is it not because the Lord hath anointed thee to be captain over his inheritance, or Yahweh, or Yahuwah? And Samuel called the people together unto the Lord to Mizpah. This is 16 verses down, 17 through 24. and said unto the children of Israel, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I brought up Israel out of Egypt, and delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all kingdoms, and of them that oppressed you. And you have this day rejected your God, who himself saved you out of all your adversities and your tribulations. And you have said unto him, Nay, but set a king over us. Now therefore present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and by your thousands. So basically, as I stated before, Jehovah was the one that brought them out of the trials and tribulations out of the land of Egypt. He was the one that delivered them, but yet the people of Israel have rejected God, and so therefore by rejecting him they wished upon an earthly ruler to rule over them. And the Lord gave them what they wanted. Now therefore present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and by your thousands. And when Samuel had caused all the tribes of Israel to come near, the tribe of Benjamin was taken, which he had caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near by their families. The family of Monarchy was taken, and Saul the son of Kish was taken, and when they sought him, he could not be found. Therefore they inquired of the Lord further, if the man should yet come thither. And the Lord answered, Behold, he hath hid himself among the stuff. And they ran and fetched him thence. And when he stood among the people, he was higher than any of the people from his shoulders and upward. And Samuel said to all the people, See ye him whom the Lord hath chosen, that there is none like him among all the people. And all the people shouted and said, God save the king. And then later on, Saul's kingship was firmly established upon his victory at Jabesh Gilead, after which he was proclaimed king at Gilgal, which is in 1 Samuel 11, 1 through 15. And it states, Then Nahash the Ammonite came up and encamped against Jabesh Gilead, and all the men of Jabesh said unto Nahash, Make a covenant with us, and we will serve thee. And Nahash the Ammonite answered them, On this condition will I make a covenant with you, that I may thrust out all your right eyes, and lay it for a reproach upon all Israel. And the elders of Jabesh said unto him, Give us 7 days' respite, that we may send messengers unto all the coasts of Israel. And then if there be no man to save us, we will come out to thee. Then came the messengers to Gibeah of Saul, and told the tidings in the ears of the people, and all the people lifted up their voices and wept. And behold, Saul came after the herd out of the field, and Saul said, What aileth the people that they weep? And they told him the tidings of the men of Jabesh. And the Spirit of God came upon Saul when he heard those tidings, and his anger was kindled greatly. And he took a yoke of oxen, and hewed them in pieces, and sent them throughout all the coasts of Israel by the hands of messengers, saying, Whosoever cometh not forth after Saul and after Samuel, so shall it be done unto his oxen. And the fear of the Lord fell on the people, and they came out with one consent. And when he numbered them in Bezek, the children of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. And they said unto the messengers that come, Thus shall you say unto the men of Jabesh Gilead, Tomorrow, by that time the sun be hot, you shall have help. And the messengers came and showed it to the men of Jabesh, and they were glad. Therefore the men of Jabesh said, Tomorrow we will come out unto you, and you shall do with us all that seemeth good unto you. And it was so on the morrow that Saul put the people in 3 companies. And they came into the midst of the host in the morning, watch, and slew the Ammonites, until the heat of the day. And it came to pass that they which remained were scattered, so that 2 of them were not left together. And the people said unto Samuel, Who is he that says, Shall Saul reign over us, to bring the men, that we may put them to death? And Saul said, There shall not a man be put to death this day, for today the Lord hath wrought salvation in Israel. Then said Samuel to the people, Come and let us go to Gilgal, and renew the kingdom there. And all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal, and there they sacrificed sacrifices of peace offerings before the Lord, and there's Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. So this is where Saul was first anointed king. He started out really good. Um, he was loved by the people. He was in obedience to God, and everything was fine. Everything was just hunky dory. There was no problems. But things began to happen. So, following initial successes, Saul soon began making a series of very serious blunders, beginning with the offering of a sacrifice which was to be performed only by the priests. So here comes the disobedience. And Saul said, "Bring hither a burnt offering." This is 1 Samuel 13, 9 through 12. "Bring hither a burnt offering to me, and peace offerings." And he offered the burnt offering. And it came to pass that as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him, that he might salute him. And Samuel said, "What hast thou done?" And Saul said, "Because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that thou camest not within the days appointed, and that the Philistines gathered themselves together at Michmash. Therefore said I, the Philistines will come down now upon me to Gilgal, and I have not made supplication unto the Lord. I forced myself, therefore, and offered a burnt offering." So you realize that? He forced himself. He basically did it his way. He was going to do it his way. Okay? And there's a message of lukewarmness I'm going to share with you that goes in line with the story of Saul. A lot of people are basically in their spiritual mindset, and in their spiritual mindset, are following after the workings of Saul. They want to do it their way. They want to have it. It's a have it their way religion. It's a lukewarm Christianity, and Jehovah is not going to be putting up with it. Okay, you're either going to be cold or hot. There is no in the middle. And this is what Saul basically was. He was in the middle. Eventually to the point where he just continuously kept on disobeying, or disobeying. There was no going back, because there were times where he repented and then went back to being disobedient, repented again. But then eventually the evil spirit from the Lord that the Lord sent him, it wasn't the Lord's evil spirit. He doesn't have an evil spirit, but he permitted an evil spirit to come upon Saul. Once it fully overcame him, that was it. And that's the whole danger of being lukewarm. Okay? Because eventually you're going to basically shift to cold. You're not going to shift to hot. You're either on fire for Christ or you're not. Okay? You're either on fire for the Messiah and the Father, or you're not. There is no in between. And we're coming to a time where you're going to see that happening, where these people that are lukewarm are going to go in the way of cold, and they're going to end up betraying you or me or your loved ones. People that you thought would never betray you will betray you because their spirit is lukewarm. And they remain lukewarm. Mainly because they're looking for certain events that they think is going to happen according to what their teachers told them, but are not going to happen the way they thought. And therefore they're going to be given up to the strong delusion. Lukewarm is a very dangerous condition to be in. So it was this foolish, presumptuous disobedience to God that cost him the kingship, which would later be taken over by King David. 1 Samuel 13, 13 through 14. And Samuel said to Saul, "Thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee, for now would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. But now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee." What does it say in Revelations? Here is the patience of the saints. Here are those that keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus. For the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. Saul's behavior then further degenerated from unwise to outright insane. So you see how this is like a complete mirror image. This is just one individual. Now this is a mirror image of the end times that we are living in. Of so many, a majority of lukewarm apostate Christians, and apostate churches is what we see before our very eyes. It's like a spirit of Saul, basically, and if you look at the two nations from Rebecca, there's two nations in the womb. Okay, that's basically a type of the end. Of the end. There's only two groups. The group that is going to overcome evil with good, and the other group which is just outright evil. There's only two groups. There is no in-between. And lukewarm is in between. You can't have it lukewarm. You're either going to pick one side or the other. That's what's going to come down to. And it'll be wise to pick one side or the other right now. Because when you're forced to do it, chances are you're going to pick the losing side. And God forbid, I would hate to see that happen to any of those watching this. Saul's behavior then further degenerated from unwise to outright insane, including ordering his military forces to go without food until they had defeated the enemy, and attempting to have his own victorious son Jonathan executed for disregarding the foolish order. We're going to read 21 verses in 1 Samuel 14, starting in verse 24, that talks about this. And the men of Israel were distressed that day, for Saul had adjured the people, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food until evening, that I may be avenged on my enemies. So none of the people tasted any food. And all they of the land came to a wood, and there was honey upon the ground. And when the people came into the wood, behold, the honey dropped, but no man put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared the oath. But Jonathan heard not when his father charged the people with the oath, wherefore he put forth the end of the rod that was in his hand, and dipped it in a honeycomb, and put his hand to his mouth, and his eyes were enlightened. And then answered one of the people, and said, Thy father straitly charged the people with an oath, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food this day. And the people were faint. Then said Jonathan, My father hath troubled the land. See, I pray you, how mine eyes have been enlightened, because I tasted a little bit of this honey. How much more, if haply the people had eaten freely today of the spoil of their enemies which they found? For had there not been now a much greater slaughter among the Philistines? And they smote the Philistines that day from Michmash to Aijalon, and the people were very faint. And the people flew upon the spoil, and took sheep and oxen and calves, and slew them on the ground, and the people did eat them with the blood. Then they told Saul, saying, Behold, the people sin against the Lord, and that they eat with the blood. And he said, Ye have transgressed. Roll a great stone unto me this day. And Saul said, Disperse yourselves among the people, and say unto them, Bring me hither every man his ox, and every man his sheep, and slay them here, and eat, and sin not against the Lord in eating with the blood. And all the people brought every man his ox with him that night, and slew them there. And Saul built an altar unto the Lord, the same was the first altar that he built unto the Lord. And Saul said, Let us go down after the Philistines by night, and spoil them until the morning light. And he let us not leave a man of them. And they said, Do whatsoever seemeth good unto thee. Then said the priests, Let us draw near hither unto God. Then Saul asked counsel of God, Shall I go down after the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into the hand of Israel? But he answered him not that day. So now his prayers are getting hindered. And Saul said, Draw ye near hither all the chief of the people, and know and see wherein this sin hath been this day. For as the Lord liveth, which saveth Israel, though it be in Jonathan my son, he shall surely die. But there was not a man among all the people that answered him. Then said unto all Israel, Be ye on one side, and I and Jonathan my son will be on the other side. And the people said unto Saul, Do what seemeth good unto thee. Therefore Saul said unto the Lord God of Israel, Give a perfect lot. And Saul and Jonathan were taken, but the people escaped. And Saul said, Cast lots between me and Jonathan my son, and Jonathan was taken. Then Saul said to Jonathan, Tell me what thou hast done. And Jonathan told him, and said, I did but taste a little honey with the end of the rod that was in mine hand, and lo, I must die. And Saul answered, God do so and more also, for thou shalt surely die, Jonathan. And the people said unto Saul, Shall Jonathan die who hath wrought this great salvation in Israel? God forbid, as the Lord liveth, there shall not one hair of his head fall to the ground, for he hath wrought with God this day. So the people rescued Jonathan that he died not. So you can see that whole act of disobedience there. Saul's continued bizarre behavior and disregard of God's instructions resulted in the kingship being taken from him and transferred to David. According to 1 Samuel 16, 1-3. And the Lord said unto Samuel, How long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? See, he was basically already rejected when he disobeyed God by offering that sacrifice, which only the priests were able to do. Okay? And so he was already rejected from that time forward. Fill thine horn with oil, and go. I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons. And Samuel said, How can I go? If Saul hear it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, Take an heifer with thee, and say, I am come to sacrifice to the Lord. And call Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show thee what thou shalt do, and thou shalt anoint unto me whom I name unto thee. So Saul remained king for the time needed for the youthful David to prepare and mature, basically. And during that time, again, there were times where he repented, and then he fell into, sin again, repented. But eventually, that backslidden state, that lukewarm state that he was under after he sinned initially, eventually overcame him. Because he kept on going back. He kept on going back to disobedience. Can you see the similarities in today's Christians? In today's supposed Christians? There's a lot of similarities there. Again, Saul remained king for the time needed for the youthful David to prepare and mature. It was during this period that the incident between David and Goliath, which occurred in 1 Samuel 17, 1-58, I'll provide you the link with that. You can go ahead and read that. I ain't got time to read it all. After which David served the king in his palace, becoming a very good friend of Saul's son Jonathan. Saul's jealousy at the sight of David's military success and popularity with the people resulted Saul's trying to murder David with a spear while he was playing the harp. 1 Samuel 19, 9 and 10, which says, And the evil spirit from the Lord was upon Saul, as he sat in his house with his javelin in his hand, and David played with his hand. And Saul sought to smite David even to the wall with the javelin, but he slipped away out of Saul's presence, and he smote the javelin into the wall. And David fled and escaped that night. So after which David became a fugitive from the king. And yet another failure in judgment and obedience to God, Saul consulted the witch of Endor, in which his doom was predicted by an apparent appearance by the dead Samuel. You can read about that in 1 Samuel 28, 4-25. So now he's going after fortune tellers, witches, sorcery. Saul died during a battle with the Philistines the very next day. And then you can read about that in 1 Samuel 31, 1-13. So the lukewarmness, a warning from obedience to disobedience. You keep going back and forth, back and forth. It's not healthy to do, folks. Yes, we fall, we stumble and fall, and we have an advocate to the Father, okay? and we can ask forgiveness, and we need to repent daily. But to continue going after the things of this world that you have repented of, eventually sin is knocking at the door and it will overcome you. And that's the dangers of lukewarmness. And it's a condition of the soul, metaphorically, just wretchedly fluctuating between a torpor and a fervor of love. Okay? At some point you're on fire for God, and at another point you're not, or you end up compromising, basically. So, in Revelation 3:14 through 17 we read, "And unto the angel of the church of the Laodiceans write, These things saith the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of God. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Because thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked." Okay? That's the lukewarm state. And lukewarm Christians who think they are saved are not really saved. Because if you read the last passage of the church of Laodicea, Jesus Christ is physically stating that I stand at the door and knock. Why would he have to stand at the door and knock if these lukewarm Christians were really saved? If they were really saved, if they really received salvation, they would have opened the door for him to come in a long time ago. So therefore, those sinners' prayers and stuff like that were just vain words. It didn't mean nothing. No wonder why it says there will be many that won't make it, that says, Lord, Lord. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven. It's a very, very dangerous condition this end time church is in, because they accept compromise. They think they have it all figured out, and they love to have it so. They love being lukewarm. There's a lot of times there's no reaching them. It's like their conscience is being seared with a hot iron. It's the same thing with Saul, with the story of Saul. There was compromise, there was disobedience, and that was lukewarmness. 2 Thessalonians 2:9 through 13, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. What did Saul do with the witch of Endor? And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. But we are bound to give thanks always to God for you, brethren beloved of the Lord, because God hath from the beginning chosen you to salvation through sanctification of the Spirit and belief of the truth. And John 16:2, they shall put you out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth God's service. And these things will they do unto you, because they have not known the Father, nor me. See, a lot of people are confessing, yeah, I know Jesus Christ, I know Yeshua, I know Yahuwah, Yahweh, but they don't, because they don't know the Father. They're not studying the Word. They're not studying the whole Word. They take verses here and verses there, and they just go with whatever their itching ears want to hear. And like I said, you can probably be sitting there listening to this right now, and chances are there is a loved one who you think right now is very, very sincere in their faith, but chances are in their heart they are lukewarm. And those are the same ones that will betray you, The end times, the beginning of, the time of sorrows is a time of betrayal. They will deliver you up, and you will be persecuted. I mean, think of it this way: 95 to 99% of your churches today are 501c3 corporate entities, which means they already are yoked up with the government, and they have to abide by what the government tells them to. So eventually, there's going to come a time where you will have to make a stand. Are you going to go in the way of the cold and be betrayers of the brethren, or are you going to come back and be on fire for Christ? Something you got to think about. And the story of Saul is a very, very clear-cut example of lukewarmness. So this has been part 10. Until next time, guys, truth be told, truth be known, stay safe, God bless, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.